Hey, I'm back. Thoughts from Flyover Country. I'm going live on this one because, hey, it's election day tomorrow, and I've had so much technical issues and difficulties that I'm not even going to mess with it right now. I don't usually go live just because of my issues with being tongue tied occasionally and stuttering some. That's just part of how it works. And well, like right now, especially after a long day of work, which today's been a long day. So, three things that I want to get to um, regarding the election. By the way, no matter how difficult my head injury has made things, I think I'm still one up on Joe Biden. Just a thought there. But there were three things that I wanted to cover and I wanted to talk about before you go to the polls. Something for you to think about. Number one, when you go to the polls, you got to think about, are you voting out of fear or out of faith? The Democrats have always been big ones in talking about fear mongering from the Republican right. But when it comes right down to it, who's promoting the fear right now? It certainly isn't President Trump. Uh, he's very optimistic. I've watched his speeches. He's very much uh, about how everything's coming together again and we're going to get right back into things and it's all going to be great. The downside, of course, comes from Joe Biden. Oh, this is gonna be, we're all gonna die. Yeah, someday we're all gonna die. That's a given. In my case, I don't think it's going to be from COVID. Given my family history, I'm going to say it's either going to be cancer or heart disease. But that's the way my family history is. So I'm going to guess it's going to be one of those two things, but probably not COVID. Yeah, the fact is that COVID's going to be around for a long time. When you release a biologic agent like that into the general population, you can't put the genie back in the bottle. They can't China's not going to be able to go out there and withdraw COVID as a weapon. That's what it is, and they can't go back and say, well, you know what, we made a mistake here. We'll just put that back in the bottle. No, it doesn't work that way. Once you release it, it's out there, and it's out there forever, and you're not going to stop it. And given that it was based on a flu virus, the COVID virus, flu virus type thing, you know, we're going to be able to combat it to a degree, but it's still going to be out there, just like the Spanish flu is still out there. It's going to come up with new strains that are going to combat different vaccinations and stuff, and we're just going to have to learn how to deal with it. So from that perspective, I think Trump is right. It's out there. There's not much we can do. We can vaccinate, we can combat it, but we're never going to get rid of it. It's always going to be there. And hey, we just got to move on and get with the program. And Trump is projecting the faith that he has in the Almighty that it's all going to get better. And that's one of the things I like about Trump. He projects that faith. All I hear from the left is the doom and the gloom. And that plays into part two, their agenda. There's a reason for the doom and gloom. There's a reason why they want to maintain these mask mandates, why they want to clamp down on your civil rights, why they want to keep the country closed down. They are trying to trash the economy and destroy the currency so that they can do their global reset. That's right, I said global reset. This is not just an American phenomenon. This is a global phenomenon. The pandemic was loosed on the world, and the phenomenon is worldwide. If you look at all of the news that's out there and kind of filter it, decipher, you come to the conclusion that the globalization is a movement within the world. And right now, the United States and Britain are bucking that global movement. You could say that the coronavirus was loosed on the world to take out two very important characters, Donald Trump and British Prime Minister. His name escapes me at the moment. But he's the other one that they're trying to undermine, because what did he do? Well, he committed to Brexit, which is something that none of the other previous prime ministers in Britain committed to. They wouldn't do it. And he has done it. So Donald Trump, who is bucking the globalization thing in his way, and the British Prime Minister is bucking globalization in his way. And the fact of the matter is that both of these men are successfully combating the whole global worldview. And this is something that the left absolutely can't tolerate. That's why they're all in on this election. I mean, everything's in play right now. You've got situations where they're doing everything they can in certain swing states to throw the election, at least put it into some kind of it can be contested. Because if Trump wins, the left wants to say that he's illegitimately elected. If Biden wins, there's not going to be any investigation into voter fraud because, hey, it worked for us. So you've got those two issues working or not working well together. And that is going to make this election, for lack of a better term, a real shit show. The last thing I wanted to point out before you go to the polls, and this is from watching a couple of Joe Biden speeches and a couple of Barack Obama's speeches here lately, in spite of the fact that you can't always understand what Joe Biden is saying. Obamacare, or the whatever the official name of it is Obamacare. Okay, healthcare. Healthcare as a human right. That's a very interesting point. Healthcare is a human right. Healthcare is a service. Healthcare has to be performed by someone who is trained and educated in human physiology in depth, including the illnesses and maladies of the human physiology. That requires a lot of education. Doctors, unlike teachers, I got my teaching degree. I went to school 4 years and boom, I got a diploma up here that says I can go to a school and I can teach. And, I've got a teacher's certificate and, uh, you know, I've got a few other awards, but all in all, 4 years of college and I can go teach a subject. Doctors, no, 4 years isn't enough. 4 years gets you through pre-med. So you can still get kicked out of med school. No, they go for years, and then they go into uh, their pre-medical training and uh, just I mean they go through years of training to become doctors. And my mother was a nurse, and they have a lot of training. I have been in classrooms. I'm as a substitute teacher, I get to teach all kinds of stuff, including things like medical terminology. And fortunately, my mother having been a nurse, I have a little bit of background in some of that. And quite frequently, I get called in to sub in those capacities just because I have a little knowledge there that maybe some other subs don't have. But long story short, and I'm rambling a little, healthcare is a service. People have to provide this service. The only way that you can make healthcare a right that the government will pay for and the government can afford to pay for. And this is the economist talking here, which I have a degree in economics. So you're either going to have to cut salaries of medical professionals so that the government can adequately handle that amount of cost. Or you're going to have to put draconian limitations on the service that you have a right to. Because the government can't afford to foot everybody's medical bill when they get cancer, when they have that heart attack, when they, like me, when they get in a car accident and find themselves permanently disabled from it. Bean counters come into play and they get to make decisions like, Oh, well, gee, this guy, wow. Oh, this guy's got cancer. Uh, let's see. We got some drugs that'll make him feel better for a little bit. We'll give him that and call it good. He'll kick off and we'll save some money there. Or, oh, wow, this guy's messed up in this car accident. And I can tell you right now that, yeah, he isn't going to be a real major contributing factor to society after we put him back together. So, uh, you know what? We'll just pull the plug on him and say there's nothing we can do. Yeah, that's how they do it in socialized medicine. Um, that's why there are huge long waits. That's why the VA system was the disaster it was before Donald Trump came along. Because they were funneling all these people into a very limited service. And the doctors they had were not getting paid like the doctors out in private practice. Government doctors don't get paid the same. So what happens? You don't get the same quality doctor. You get the doctors that maybe finished last in medical school instead of first. And let's face it, a lot of those people that finished first in med school, if they had to go into a system that limited their income potential and created this crushing debt load that there was no way to pay off, they're not going to go into the medical profession. They're going to go find someplace else to go. That's why socialized medicine doesn't work. And that's why you can't go around saying healthcare is a right. It's not a right. And, I know this as anybody because, hey, I was in an accident. It was a massive accident. I was in the hospital for quite a while. I had to go through rehabilitation uh, so that I could walk again. Uh, being a Going back to being a full-time teacher was no longer an option. Going back to being a coach was no longer an option. Um, Even being a volunteer firefighter in the local community was no longer an option. Uh, my life has been turned upside down because of that accident. So, fortunately, I had healthcare that healthcare policy that paid a vast majority of my medical bills. And I recognize that not everybody has that luxury, but it's all about allocating your scarce resources. If you make healthcare a right, somebody still has to pay for it, or it's a non-existent entity. So that's just something to think about before you head to the polls and vote. Do head to the polls and vote because it is very important that we find a leader to recorded stuff out there in the near future. I have been just swamped with all kinds of technical issues and overwhelmed with things for educational purposes and reasons. I'm still a teacher. I just can't teach full time. So I figured I could use my capabilities in this pandemic to help out some of my fellow teachers with some um, YouTube videos on educational level stuff. So um, if you happen to want to look up some of my uh, welding videos, some of my auto repair videos, um, some of my social science videos, um, you know, you can look around on YouTube and probably come up with some of them because I am working on putting out those, and that's that's been difficult because I don't really have the kind of equipment in the shop that I need to produce first class videos, but hopefully I can get this uh, up and going and launched, especially since my understanding is we're on the verge of going to code red again in my area. So, and that means that everybody's on Zoom learning. So that's all I've got for now, and I will be back as soon as I can. So have a good evening, and don't forget to vote.